Welcome back to the Tool Crib. Today we're going to be talking about Leatherman tools and specifically the Leatherman Garage and my personal thoughts on the direction I think Leatherman is going, and frankly I think it's the wrong direction. So first of all, we've got the Leatherman Mr. Crunch, which was the first release from the Leatherman Garage. We have the Leatherman Dark Side, which I think is a fantastic tool. It was the second release from the Leatherman Garage. Now the last one is a special edition. This is the Tom Sachs Leatherman Charge that I brought out here to highlight some things that they took from this tool concept and added into the Leatherman Dark Side, which I thought were fantastic. The next two are two that I did not get. The next one is the batch number 3, which was the Leatherman Parts, I think is what they called it. It's basically a knife that has an S30V blade and a 154 CM blade that are interchangeable. One with a Tonto blade, I think the other one with a drop point blade. What was innovative about that particular tool is that the bit exchanger was releasable from the with the lanyard attached to it, and so that's a little different. Not something that I hated, but not something that really truly appealed to me either. The latest release, which came out a couple of days ago, is the Leatherman batch number 4, which is the Europe 75. Now basically this is, in my opinion, it's a dressed up T4 is what it is. So what you have is the standard free series tools on one side, and on the opposite side they added in a corkscrew and a corkscrew assist, which seem to be fairly well integrated. I don't really care for the free series, so it doesn't really appeal to me. I don't really care for the T series. I do not mind the K series of tools, which is also in the free line, but they didn't really do anything that appealed to me. So I did get the email on this one. I saw it, I took one look at it, I said, yeah, I don't think so. And this is part of the reason why I think Leatherman is going in the wrong direction. So originally the Garage was designed to highlight some of the different things that they could do with multi-tools and hopefully integrate those into production model multi-tools, which that may not be what they intended, but that's what they said, and that's how I took it. So with the Leatherman Crunch, a couple of things, or Mr. Crunch, I'm sorry, apart from the different jaws that you get, the needle nose to blunt nose transition that these offered, it's not really a viable thing for a production multi-tool, in my opinion. It's more of an ode back to Mr. Leatherman's original design for the Mr. Crunch when he was first coming up with his concepts for multi-tools, which I thought was a nice first addition for the Leatherman Garage to basically an ode to Mr. Leatherman himself. A couple of things that they did add to it that I thought were nice is that they redesigned the holder for the micro driver, which I thought could be integrated very well into the Leatherman Wave and Charge series. And the next thing that they did was they added on a chisel, which was a first in a Leatherman multi-tool. I thought both of those could be added into production models of their free series or in other multi-tools as well. Now, with the Leatherman Dark Side, first of all, the Leatherman Tom Sachs edition, special edition Charge, one thing that it did is it added all these different scale tools. So you have ballpoint pen holder, which release off the tool releases. You have a straight pin, which I just cut my nail, so that's going to be a little tough to get out of there. But you have a little straight pin, that's something that you'll find in Victorinox knives, in their scale tools. Then you have a set of tweezers, which are always nice to have, which slide very nicely and are trapped inside the scales. And the last thing, which I thought was very innovative and useful in my particular line of work, is Carbide Scribe, which in this case has a lanyard attached to it as well. So these are things that they've somewhat added into the Leatherman Dark Side, with the exception of the straight pin. They didn't add that, nor did they add the pocket clip. So this is a very nice charge, a very expensive charge, but I thought that they had ideas in there that could translate into production model tools. Now, what they did different with the Dark Side is, because they put this DLC coating on them, in order to get the coating correctly, they had to make this in 2 halves. Well, that kind of worked out really well for the fact that this thing is ultra smooth. And this is something that I think if they had a removable halves for their like their Charge series, they don't necessarily have to do this every multi-tool, but it would fit really well into the Charge series, is to have that where they could even without the DLC coating, where it could be fine-tuned, adjusted to get the action just right on the pliers themselves. I think that's a fantastic idea that worked well in this. As far as the rest of the tools, they are the same as what you're going to find in a standard charge. They did add the scale tools, with the exception that they don't have the pocket clip like you do in the NASA version, and they don't have the straight pin. They do have the tweezers, the carbide scribe, and the ballpoint pen holder. This is one tool that I think they could have gone straight into production with, and I think it would do very, very well. Seems to me that Leatherman is starting to get away from what made it its core, though. Gone are the days where they made specific multi-tools that were based on specific industries. One tool that comes to mind, or actually a couple, the Leatherman Mutt, which came out and was really designed for military personnel, and it just has so many different interesting features to it that are specific for that genre of tool. Those include, in this particular case, a C4 punch. They have the bronze scraper, which I really like on this tool for gun care. Then they have the seatbelt cutters integrated. They have the pommel or the hammer, and the overall design of this was it's just attractive. It's a very well made multi-tool. It's very expensive to make, and so it sold very expensively as well. And the next thing that they came out with that I thought was really greatly industry based was the Leatherman Raptor, which you'll notice is not unlike any of the other multi-tools, and it doesn't need to be. This is specifically based for first responders, EMT, rescue personnel. So basically, the main tool on this is shears. It also includes seatbelt cutter, which I don't really get why they put a seatbelt cutter on there. I think if I'm going to use this in that type of situation, the shears do a lot better job than a seatbelt cutter. They do have the oxygen wrench, they have the glass brake, lanyard, and then they have a pocket clip. They also come with a case for this one. So this was another tool that Leatherman made that was specifically industry-based or genre-based, which I think they could do well to get into or get back to, in my opinion. So with the Leatherman Garage Release 3 and 4, they were kind of bland to me. They didn't really show off anything new or innovative that I thought would work well in production multi-tools. But it seems more and more that the Leatherman Garage is not what I initially thought it was going to be. I thought the Leatherman Garage was designed to highlight new implements, new tools, and bring them to market in different multi-tools or to add them into current production multi-tools. But that does not seem to be the case. It seems more and more that they are just money grabs. They're not really, they've had a year with some of these. The Leatherman Mr. Crunch has been out for a year, the Leatherman Dark Side almost a year, and yet we have yet to see those different designs be integrated into any kind of production multi-tool. So my theory is this, that Leatherman would do well if they got back to more genre-based tools. They can make tools that are specifically designed for electricians. One that's designed for plumbers, one that's designed for fishermen, one that's designed for the office worker, stuff of that nature. And it doesn't have to have it doesn't have to be a toolbox approach tool like you'll find with mine in like the Leatherman Surge. Leatherman Surge is, in my opinion, the best multi-tool ever built. But it's too heavy for a lot of people and a lot of unnecessary stuff for a lot of people. Now, I personally use everything on this multi-tool, and so I find the value in it. But that's not true of every multi-tool. Now, one thing, let me set these to the side. One thing that I recently bought, and I've had it for about a year now, is the Exceed Designs Tyrant Razor V2. This is one tool that I have purchased that has not left my pocket since the day I bought it. And you can see by the use on the blade that this is not a paperweight for me. I actually use this thing. This is one tool that Leatherman never has come out with. They never have come out with their own design of a utility blade holder, which is one thing that they could do, and it would sell very well if they engineered it correctly. Another tool along that same theme is the Milwaukee Fastback. You have, this one is the 4822-1505. This is very popular among blue-collar workers because it offers great usability without all the extra tools that you don't necessarily need. So what it has, bottle cap lifter, which Leatherman really loves. You have the knife itself, which is a push button has a nice action to it, though it does have to be cleaned occasionally in order to keep that action smooth on it. But it has a nice utility blade holder with a great release on it. It's just a fantastic tool. And then the one thing that really stands out with the Milwaukee version, or this version of the Milwaukee Fastback, is the fact that it has a liner locked reversible bit driver in here. So you have a true number 2 Phillips and you have a 1/4 inch flat driver, and it locks. That is locking. This is something that Gerber has had some really good ideas, but they haven't implemented them well. And one of the things that they need on their drivers is to have it as a locking driver. So these are all things that these are ideas that Leatherman could come up with their own version, and it would sell incredibly well. And I got to tell you, Leatherman, you guys are getting your heels nipped out. So your Wave and Charge series have really their patents have gone out. And so now you're starting to see Chinese companies that are making knockoffs of your tool. Now, the Leatherman Surge right now is like $140. Well, why would somebody buy a Leatherman Surge? Now, granted, I get that you have a higher quality tool, but why is the normal average consumer going to buy a Leatherman Surge at $140 when they could buy the knockoff version for $50 and get 85 to 90% of the value or the use out of the knockoff version than they will off your Leatherman Surge? It just doesn't make sense financially for them to do that unless you're going to innovate it, make it something different, make it better. Then you have tools like the new Goat tool, where this is a comment that I hear more often than not, is Leatherman has got to get to a point where they are starting to make tools or multi-tools where people can change out different implements to suit their specific needs. And while I understand from the company perspective that this is not a highly profitable option over the long haul, it is something that I think Leatherman is going to be forced into, because you've got companies like Goat who are starting to make these tools, and they're going to catch on. They're going to catch on very, very quickly. So more and more, I have been disappointed with Leatherman over the last year or so. It's actually been a little longer than that. But really, when the free series of tools started coming out, I was not a fan of them. I get where they're appealing to the tinkerer, trying to appeal to a younger generation, which I'm fine with. I don't have any problem with. I just don't. They seem to be concentrating more on those and leaving these other tools behind, or not really trying to improve older models like they have over the years with the Wave. So while free series is not really my cup of tea, I understand it and I'm fine with it being in the production line. I just think that they need to start looking down different avenues. This is absolutely one of the best tools I ever bought. And it's one of those tools, the moment I bought it, I knew it was never going to leave my pocket. And to this date, in fact, they have a version 3 of this particular tool out now. This is something Leatherman could really come up with their own design. And they could add in a couple of other tools, as long as it doesn't get too bulky. They could really take this type of tool and make it their own if they chose to, but instead they seem to be concentrating on what I am starting to perceive with the Garage series of tools as just money grabs. They're not really taking those ideas and incorporating them into production model tools. And so my advice to Leatherman is either you're going to have to adapt or you're going to be a footnote in history. It's adapt or die out there. And while I get, when GM went through all their troubles, what did they do? They slimmed down and they streamlined their production. Now, I'm not saying that Leatherman is on the same level as GM as far as a company, but it works in scale form. It works with Leatherman too. If you get too broad on what you're trying to do and you don't get back to what made you the company that you are going to be left by the wayside. And that's just my personal opinion, but I know a lot of people feel the same way. So in short, adapt or die is what it comes down to. And I've not been a fan of these latest Garage releases unless you start incorporating some of those designs or some of those tool concepts into production-based tools where everybody can enjoy them instead of these limited production runs. My name is Ben. You've been watching the Texas Tool Crib. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next one.